As the international community cautiously digests the news of a potential diplomatic breakthrough ahead of the Alaska summit, intelligence reports circulating in Western and European capitals suggest a deeply troubling development. Russian intelligence sources, corroborated by certain signals intelligence gathered by Western agencies, are warning of a potential false flag operation being planned by a rogue faction within Ukraine's security services. The alleged plot centers on the northeastern city of Kharkiv and is purportedly designed to simulate a catastrophic attack, which would then be blamed on Russian force. The objective, according to these reports, is to create a horrifying international incident that would enrage global public opinion, scuttle the upcoming peace talks between President Donald Trump and the Russian leader, and force the West to abandon diplomacy in favor of renewed massive military support for Kyiv. The allegations, though originating from Moscow, and thus viewed with extreme skepticism, have gained enough traction to cause serious concern within the Trump administration, prompting urgent consultation between key national security officials. The details of this alleged plot, as leaked to several international news agencies, are chilling. They claim that operatives from a hardline nationalist element within the Security Service of Ukraine, SBU, are preparing to stage a large-scale chemical or radiological incident in a densely populated area of Kharkiv. The city, which has endured months of relentless Russian bombardment, provides a tragically plausible backdrop for such an event. The plan reportedly involves the detonation of a conventional explosive device laced with hazardous materials, potentially industrial, chemical, or radiological waste, creating what is commonly known as a dirty bomb. The ensuing contamination and panic would be amplified by a coordinated media campaign, leveraging pre-existing image of Russian attack to create a narrative of a deliberate Russian atrocity of unprecedented scale. The ultimate goal is to generate an event so shocking that it would make any political engagement with Moscow toxic and politically impossible for President Trump and European leaders. The timing of this intelligence leaks is highly significant, coming just as a fragile consensus for talk appeared to be forming between Washington, Kyiv, and Europe. This has led many observers to suspect a Russian disinformation campaign aimed at sowing discord among the allies and discrediting Ukraine on the eve of crucial negotiations. Russian officials have long accused Ukraine of planning such provocations, and these new claims fit a familiar pattern. However, what sets this warning apart is the level of specific detail and the fact that some Western intelligence services have reportedly detected anomalous communications and movements of certain materials within Ukraine that are consistent, at least in part, with the Russian claims. This has created a dilemma for policymakers in the Trump administrations. Dismissing the reports entirely risks being caught unprepared for a genuine catastrophic event, while taking them at face value could play directly into a Russian psyop designed to undermine Ukraine. Within the White House, the intelligence has been met with a mixture of alarm and deep skepticism. President Trump has reportedly been briefed on the matter by his Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and CIA Director John Ratcliffe. While President Trump is said to be wary of any intelligence that could derail his planned summit, he has instructed his national security team to investigate the claims thoroughly but discreetly. The prevailing view within the administration is that while a state-sanctioned false flag operation orchestrated by President Zelensky's government is highly unlikely, the possibility of a rogue faction acting independently cannot be entirely ruled out. The Ukrainian military and security apparatus are not monolithic. They contain hardline nationalist elements, some with ties to far-right paramilitary groups who vehemently oppose any territorial concessions to Russia's and view President Zelensky's recent diplomatic pivot as a betrayal. These groups have the motive and potentially the means to sabotage a peace process they see as a capitulation. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary of Defense Peter Hegseth have been tasked with engaging their Ukrainian counterparts to convey Washington's grave concerns. The message is being delivered with extreme delicacy. The United States is not formally accusing the Ukrainian government of anything, but is instead sharing intelligence about a potential threat and seeking assurance that Kyiv is taking steps to prevent any such incident. The diplomatic tightrope is a difficult one to walk. Any perceptions that Washington is giving credence to Russian propaganda could damage the already strained trust between the Trump administration and President Zelensky's government. Attorney General Pam Bondi's office has also been quietly consulted on the potential international legal ramifications of such an event, highlighting the seriousness with which the threat is being considered. The situation in Kharkiv itself is tense and volatile. The city has been on the front line for much of the war, and its population has been traumatized by constant shelling. The presence of numerous military units, volunteer battalions, and security service personnel creates a chaotic and opaque environment where a rogue operation could plausibly be planned and executed without the knowledge of the central government. Reports from the ground indicate that Ukrainian security services have recently intensified their activities in the Kharkiv region, though this could be attributed to legitimate counter-sabotage operation against Russian infiltration. This ambiguity makes it incredibly difficult for outside observers to distinguish between defensive measures and preparations for a more sinister operation. The motivation for such a desperate and high-risk plot would stem from a profound fear among Ukrainian hardliners that President Trump is prepared to sell out Ukraine's interest in Alaska for the sake of a quick foreign policy victory. From their perspective, a negotiated settlement based on the current front line would mean the permanent loss of a significant portion of Ukrainian territory and would represent a victory for Russian aggression. An event like a dirty bomb explosion in Kharkiv would, in their view, change the entire strategic calculus. It would galvanize Western support, force the U.S. to abandon negotiations, and plunge the conflict back into a total war footing, which they believe is the only path to a complete victory. They would be betting that the horrific image from Kharkiv would override any of President Trump's transactional instinct and force his hand. This alleged plot also puts European leaders in an extremely difficult position. Having just coalesced around a unified negotiating framework with the US and Ukraine, the specter of a false flag operation threatens to shatter that fragile unity. Leaders like Germany's Friedrich Merz and France's Emmanuel Macron have invested significant political capital in steering the conflict toward a diplomatic track. A major provocation would empower hawkish voices in their own countries and across Europe who have been critical of negotiations and have advocated for a more confrontational stance against Russia. It would validate their argument that Russia cannot be trusted and that diplomacy is futile. The Trump administration's response has been carefully calibrated. Publicly, officials are downplaying the reports, dismissing them as predictable Russian propaganda. White House spokespeople have reiterated President Trump's commitment to the Alaska summit and to finding a peaceful resolution to the conflict. Privately, however, a multi-pronged effort is underway to mitigate the threat. This includes enhanced satellite and signal intelligence monitoring of the Kharkiv region, diplomatic pressure on the Ukrainian government to maintain tight control over its security force, and back-channel communications with Moscow to warn against any attempt to exploit the situation. The administration is working on the assumption that even if the plot is real, it is the work of a small isolated faction and that shining a light on it discreetly is the best way to prevent it from happening. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem's department has also been put on alert to analyze the potential fallout from a radiological incident, including its impact on international security protocols and potential ripple effects far beyond Ukraine. The episode underscores the immense fragility of the current moment. The path to peace is fraught with peril, and there are powerful actors on both sides who have an interest in seeing the war continue. For Ukrainian nationalists, the fight is an existential struggle for national survival that cannot be compromised. For hawks in Russia, a negotiated settlement might be seen as an incomplete victory, and they may seek to provoke a wider conflict. For President Trump's, navigating this minefield requires a level of diplomatic finesse and strategic foresight that will be tested to its limit. The alleged Kharkiv plot serves as a stark reminder that even as leaders prepare to talk, the dog of war are still straining at the leash. The success or failure of the Alaska summit may depend not only on the negotiations that happen at the table, but also on preventing a catastrophic event designed to ensure that those negotiations never have a chance to succeed. The world holds its breath hoping that diplomacy can prevail over a plot designed to drag everyone back into the abyss of war. Many of my listeners, like 70%, haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel. And so many of you don't even know that you haven't subscribed. And that is actually what makes the show going. It's almost like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask again and again, because it enables us to grow and grow and grow. And we're going for the long haul here. And listen, if this is your first time listening to World Global Conflict, you don't have to subscribe. You guys, your first ones on me. But if you have watched this show before, it's like you are a freeloader now. So all I would ask you is, if you have seen this show before and you like it, help me, help my team here. Hit that subscribe and like button now, and we will continue to build this show for you. That I swear. Thank you to all of you guys who have subscribed. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much. That's all for me for today. I will see you soon. Bye for now.